Now the way this is set up in the timeline, our dad will just run through each animation, bouncing from one to the next. It'll look a little bit random because we don't want the dad just playing each animation one after the other. We want to have some kind of an introduction for it. And this is going to give us a chance to put a little interactivity into our presentation. What we'll do is we'll let the user who's viewing this file control which exercises the dad's going to perform. Now we've got the exercises set up. I'm going to set a little structure framework around this so that we can put in, number one, some buttons to control the animation, and number two, some scripting to make it all work properly. Let's do the buttons first. My buttons are going to be a graphic element, so I'm going to insert a layer for them, just like all the other graphics that we've done so far. I'm also going to set a position for them to start by using that blank keyframe that we used before. A blank keyframe is exactly what it implies. We've got a keyframe to make changes, but it doesn't have any artwork in it. But that's okay, I can fill up the artwork with any of my tool palettes over on the side. I'm going to draw a simple rectangle for my buttons. Now I'm going to pick the color for this rectangle before we do it. I'll use the paint bucket to set the interior fill of my rectangle, and I'm going to choose a medium blue color. For my stroke color, I'm going to choose a little bit darker blue, and I can also use the properties down here to set up things like the width and the pattern of the line. I'm simply going to change the width to a little bit thicker line, let's say 5 pixels. Now when I have my rectangle tool selected, I can use the options to modify what kind of rectangle I'm going to draw, and I'm going to use this tool here to allow me to put a little corner radius in so I'll have rounded corners on my rectangle. Something like 4 pixels should be fine. Now I'm ready to go ahead and draw the shape of my button. Our rectangle is a simple but effective shape for a button. We'll find out when we work on buttons later in our lessons that you can make a button out of just about any graphic that you have in the program. Now I'm going to make this into a button by selecting it, and using another feature in our Modify menu, I'm going to use a Convert to Symbol. This will take our graphic, which is just a normal rectangle, and make it into a symbol, which is one of our library elements over here on the side. We've had a quick chance to look at both movie clips and graphics, and you'll see that the third type of symbol, that's our button. I'm just going to give this symbol a name, and it gets added to our library file just like that. Now I'm actually going to want a few more buttons instead of just this one. So, like we did before, I'm going to drag another copy of our button symbol out, and I'll actually want one of them for each one of the exercises, and another button which we'll use to make the dad stop exercising. I can do a quick arrangement of these symbols by selecting them, and this will give us a chance to use our Align palette up in here. These tools will allow us to line up all of our objects vertically or horizontally and even set the spacing for them. For our exercise, I'm going to use an alignment to the top edge that lines them all up nicely horizontally this way, and I'm going to use a horizontal spacing tool to make sure that they have even space between them. Now our buttons aren't going to be very good without any labels on them, so let's zoom in a little bit and set those up. I'm going to grab all 3 of these and move them down just a little bit because we've got a little bit more room on our screen. And I'm going to add another layer where we'll put some text labels for our buttons. We're using a technique here where we're actually using the same button graphic but putting different labels on them to simulate different buttons. We'll be showing this and some other techniques later on in the lessons as well. I'll make my text with our text tool, and that's a fairly straightforward tool. My text properties all appear down in the property panel, and I can set up very easily things like font, size, and color. I'm going to choose white and a 10-point size with the Verdana font, and then make sure my text gets centered up. I'll just type in a label for each one of the buttons. This one will be our knee bends. Then we've got jumping jacks and our side stretch. The label for the bottom button will be take a break, and we'll use this one to have our dad stop exercising. Now I can use the same alignment tools to make sure that my text is all lined up properly. I'll line them all up at the top, and I can even use my spacing. I can also go in and just move these elements around very precisely by using the arrow keys to nudge them left, right, or up and down. Now I'll also put a label for the buttons themselves. I'll do this with the text tool, and we'll change our text properties just a little bit. So I have a little bit slightly larger text. I'll go with a dark blue color, and I'll just put a label up here for what these buttons are going to be. We'll just say, what kind of exercise should Dad do? I'll center that up over our buttons, and with that we've set up a little area where our user knows exactly what's going on.